The silent letters, a romantic mystery. Part I. The stranger's warnings. Alina had always believed her life was too ordinary for secrets. She translated books for a publishing house, drank the same brand of jasmine tea every morning, and came home each night to her small apartment on the top floor of a weathered old building. The most excitement she encountered was when a manuscript arrived late, or when the cat from the bakery downstairs followed her up the stairs in search of crumbs. That was before the letters began to appear. The first came on a rainy Thursday evening. She had just returned from work, her shoes damp, her scarf heavy with drizzle. An envelope lay waiting on the floor by her door. It was thick, cream-colored, sealed with red wax. No name. No address, just her door number scrawled in black ink. Curiosity prickled along her skin. She carried it inside, placed it on the table, and stared at it while the kettle hissed. Something in her gut whispered danger, but something else, a quieter, more dangerous voice, whispered possibility. She broke the seal. Some truths are better hidden, but I believe you deserve to know who waits for you in the shadows. Meet me at the Winter Garden 2 nights from now after dusk. No signature, no explanation. Alina read it again, and again. Her pulse quickened as she folded the letter back into its envelope. Was it a joke, a mistake? She had nearly convinced herself to throw it away when the very next morning, another envelope slid under her door. This one was thinner, rushed, the handwriting sharper. Don't trust the first one. Her breath caught 2 letters. 2 different voices, one telling her to come, the other telling her to stay away. For the rest of that day, Alina's mind was anything but her own. At work, manuscripts blurred before her eyes. At lunch, she hardly tasted her food. On the tram home, she caught herself staring at strangers, wondering if their eyes lingered on her too long. That night, she hardly slept. By the following afternoon, she gave up pretending she could ignore it. She went to her usual cafe across the street from her office, a small place with chipped porcelain cups and a warm smell of cinnamon. It had always been her refuge. Today, it became something else. He was there again. She had noticed him before, sitting by the window on more than one occasion. Dark-haired, clean-cut, always with a book in his hands, yet she had never seen him turn more than a page or two. He looked up as she entered, and their eyes met, not by chance, with intent. Alina ordered tea, took a corner table, and pretended to read. She could feel his gaze, steady as the rain against the glass. Halfway through her tea, he rose. He closed his book, crossed the room, and stopped at her table. You dropped this yesterday, he said, his voice low, touched with a faint accent. From his coat pocket, he pulled an envelope, the same cream paper, the same crimson seal. Alina's fingers shook as she accepted it. I don't understand. Who are you? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he offered the faintest of smiles, something that both unsettled and intrigued her. Just someone who believes you deserve answers. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving her heart thundering in the silence he left behind. She stared at the letter on her table until her tea went cold. Finally, she tore the seal. You must decide whom to believe. Not everyone who watches you means you harm. Her pulse raced. 3 letters, 3 different tones. Someone was pulling her into a web she could neither see nor escape. 2 nights later, she found herself standing at the gates of the Winter Garden, the city's great glass conservatory. The air was sharp with frost. The lamps along the pathways glowed golden. Inside, the scent of earth and jasmine wrapped around her as she stepped deeper, past ferns and roses, toward the sound of running water. And there he was, the man from the cafe. He stood near the fountain, waiting, his posture calm but his eyes watchful. The sight of him made her heart race with equal parts fear and anticipation. You came, he said softly, stepping closer. You sent those letters, she accused. Yes, he said then after a pause, but not all of them. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? There is another, he said, his voice low. Someone else is watching you, someone who doesn't wish you well. The words should have chilled her. Instead, it was the steady warmth of his gaze that unsettled her most. Then who are you? She demanded. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out yet another envelope. This one bore only her name. Inside, a single line, he is not who you think he is. Her breath caught. If you didn't write this, she whispered. Then who did? His jaw tightened. That is what I need to find out, but you must trust me. She wanted to resist, to step back, to keep safe distance, but something in his eyes disarmed her, something dangerous and magnetic. She realized with a jolt how close they were standing. Why me? She whispered. Why am I caught in this? For the first time, his gaze softened. Because you're not just a translator, Alina. You've been chosen for something far more dangerous. Before she could ask what he meant, footsteps echoed in the conservatory, sharp, deliberate. Someone else was there, hidden among the shadows. Alina froze. The stranger's hand brushed hers briefly, urging silence. And in that suspended moment, she realized with terrifying clarity, her life was no longer her own. The silent letters, a romantic mystery part, II. The watcher in the shadows, the footsteps grew louder, each one sharp against the tiled floor of the winter garden. Elena's pulse hammered in her ears. The stranger's hand tightened briefly around her wrist, guiding her behind a cluster of tall palms. His touch was steady, protective, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she trusted it. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Through the leaves, Elena glimpsed a figure moving slowly between the rows of orchids. The man wore a long coat, collar raised, his face hidden in shadow. He carried no lantern, yet he walked with certainty, as though he knew exactly where to go. The stranger beside her leaned close, his breath brushing her ear. "That's him." Elena shivered. "Who?" "The one who sent the other letters." The figure paused, turning his head slightly as though listening. Then, without warning, he slipped a small object onto the fountain's edge, another envelope, sealed in crimson wax. He rested his hand upon it for a moment, then vanished into the opposite corridor of plants, swallowed by the darkness. For a long heartbeat, the conservatory was silent except for the trickle of water. Elena exhaled, realizing she'd been holding her breath. She turned to the stranger. "We should call the police." He shook his head. "No, they won't understand. They'll dismiss it as a prank, and by the time they realize it's not, it will be too late." She stared at him, frustration warring with fear. "You speak as though you know more than you're telling me. Who are you?" For the first time, he looked uncertain, as though weighing how much truth she could bear. "My name is Adrian," he said finally. "I work between worlds, you could say, the visible one and the one people pretend doesn't exist." Elena frowned. "That's not an answer." "No," he admitted, "but it's the truth I can give you tonight." Something in his eyes, sharp yet unguarded, made her pulse trip. She hated that she wanted to believe him. They moved cautiously back to the fountain. The envelope lay where the mysterious figure had left it. Adrian picked it up, broke the seal, and unfolded the heavy paper. His jaw tightened as he read. He handed it to her without a word. "The man you trust will be your undoing. Meet me instead. Midnight, the old clock tower." Elena's skin prickled. The handwriting was the same as the first letter. Elegant, deliberate. Her voice trembled. "So which of you is lying to me?" Adrian didn't flinch at the accusation. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "That's exactly what he wants you to wonder, to tear down your trust before it's built." She looked up at him, searching his face for cracks, for deception. Instead, she found intensity, the kind that both frightened and fascinated her. "I don't even know you," she whispered. His reply was softer still. "But you want to." The words landed between them like a spark. For a moment, neither moved. The closeness of him unsettled her more than the shadowed figure ever could. Elena turned away, flustered. "If I follow either of you, I could be walking into a trap." "Then don't follow either," Adrian said. "Walk with me instead. Let me show you what this is really about." She hesitated. Every rational part of her screamed to walk away, to cut ties, to burn the letters and forget them. Yet another part, deeper, more reckless, leaned toward him like a moth to flame. Before she could answer, a sudden crash shattered the stillness. One of the glass panels high above the conservatory cracked under pressure. A stone had been hurled through from the outside, clattering to the floor near their feet. Attached to it was another note. Adrian cursed under his breath and snatched it up. The message inside was short, jagged, written in haste. "She doesn't know what you took from me, but she will." Elena's hands shook as she read. Her gaze snapped to Adrian. "What does this mean? What did you take?" For the first time since she had met him, his composure faltered. Shadows crossed his face and he looked away. "It's not what you think," he murmured, but the hesitation in his voice left Elena with more questions than answers. That night, as she walked home, she couldn't decide what haunted her more. The faceless figure who left the letters, or Adrian's eyes when he said "it's not what you think." For the first time in her quiet, ordinary life, she realized she had stepped into a story where every truth was tangled with lies. And her heart, against all reason, was beginning to betray her. The silent letters, a romantic mystery part, III. The past he tried to bury. Elena did not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the stone crashing through glass, saw Adrian's face when she asked him what he had taken. His silence pressed heavier than any answer. By morning, the city outside her window was washed clean by a pale rain. She made tea but left it untouched, her thoughts circling like restless birds. At last, unable to endure the waiting, she pulled on her coat and walked to the cafe across from her office, the one where she had first met him. He was there, of course he was, as though he had known she would come. Adrian sat at the same window table, a newspaper folded before him, yet when she entered, he didn't look surprised. He closed the paper, rose smoothly, and gestured for her to sit. "You left without letting me explain," he said quietly. "Because you didn't explain," Elena shot back, sharper than she intended. "You said it's not what I think, but you never said what it is." His eyes darkened, not in anger but in weariness. Some truths are dangerous to carry. I wanted to protect you. Protect me, she gave a short, humorless laugh. From letters sliding under my door, from shadows in gardens and stones crashing through glass, Adrian, I'm already in danger. You pulled me into this, whether you meant to or not. He leaned closer across the table. No, Alina. He pulled you into this. I'm trying to keep you alive. For a moment they stared at each other, locked in quiet battle, and then, almost imperceptibly, his shoulders sank. All right, he said. You want the truth. I'll give you what I can. He signaled for the waiter, paid without finishing his coffee, and stood. Not here. Walk with me. They left the cafe, the streets damp and shining under the soft drizzle. He led her toward the river, where the old stone bridges arched like silent guardians. At the far end of the promenade, he stopped beneath a canopy of trees, their branches heavy with wet leaves. Adrian took a long breath. Years ago, I was part of something I shouldn't have been. A circle of people who traded in information, secrets, stolen documents, coded letters. It was supposed to be harmless, a game of intellect and influence. But it was. It turned dangerous. People got hurt. Alina's chest tightened. And you? I left, he said simply. But you don't just walk away, not when someone believes you stole what was theirs. Her mind raced back to the note tied to the stone. She doesn't know what you took from me. Her voice shook. So you did take something. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. I took evidence. A record of what he did, proof of how far he was willing to go. I kept it hidden because if it ever surfaced, it could ruin him. But it could also destroy others who were caught in his web. And now he thinks I'm, what, your weakness? A muscle in his jaw tightened. You're more than that. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and for an instant the air between them changed. Alina felt her breath catch, not from fear this time, but from something warmer, sharper. She tried to ignore it, to focus on the danger, but his eyes, steady, intent, pinned her in place. Why me? She whispered. Because he watches me, Adrian said. He knows I've kept to myself. The moment I was seen with you, he realized you could matter. He wants to use you to break me. Alina's heart pounded, torn between dread and something recklessly sweet. And will it? His silence was answer enough. That evening back in her apartment, Alina found another letter waiting. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. The clock tower, midnight, come alone if you want the truth. If you don't, he will bury you with his lies. She pressed the paper to her chest, fighting the urge to scream. Why her? Why now? The clock tower loomed in her mind, a relic on the edge of the old quarter, abandoned, its bells silent for decades. She paced her small apartment. If she went, she risked walking into the hands of a man who wanted to use her. If she didn't, she risked never knowing what truth Adrian was still keeping from her. At 11:30, against every rational thought, Alina pulled on her coat and stepped into the night. The streets were hushed, the lamps casting pale pools of light on the cobblestones. By the time she reached the tower, her heart was hammering so loudly she feared it would give her away. The heavy wooden door stood slightly ajar. She pushed it open, wincing at the creak. Inside, the air was damp with dust and old stone. A single lantern burned at the base of the winding staircase. Next to it, an envelope. Alina knelt, her fingers trembling as she opened it. He won't tell you everything, he never will, but I will. A shadow moved above on the staircase. Alina, her breath caught. The voice was smooth, assured, nothing like Adrian's quiet intensity. A man descended slowly, his coat brushing the rail, his features finally visible in the lantern light. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes glinting like steel. I've waited a long time to meet you, he said, smiling without warmth. I'm Victor. The name itself felt dangerous. Alina's fingers curled around the letter. You're the one who's been sending these. Some of them, Victor said easily, enough to guide you here. He reached the bottom step, studying her as though she were a piece of art. You must be wondering why a stranger cares who you trust, why he hides things from you. The answer is simple. Adrian is not what he seems. Her throat tightened. And you are. His smile widened, cold as the stone around them. I am the one who can give you the truth, but truth always comes at a price. A chill slid down Alina's spine. She wanted to run, to flee into the night, but some instinct kept her rooted, knowing that whatever price Victor spoke of, she was already entangled in it. And high above them, hidden in shadow, another figure waited on the staircase, watching. Listening, Adrian. The silent letters, a romantic mystery part IV. Between two shadows, the lantern's glow flickered against the damp walls of the tower. Alina's pulse thundered as Victor stepped closer, his presence commanding, suffocating. You think Adrian came to you by chance? He asked softly, almost kindly. No, my dear, he chose you, because he needed someone naive enough to trust him, someone untouched by the past. He's good at pretending to care. He always has been. Alina's breath quickened. And you're different. Victor's smile curved, sharp as a blade. I don't pretend, I take what is mine. Before she could answer, a voice broke through the shadows above. Step away from her. Adrian descended the staircase, every stride controlled but charged with fury. His eyes never left Victor. Victor chuckled, spreading his arms in mock welcome. Ah, the prodigal ghost returns. Still chasing redemption in the eyes of women who don't know better. Leave her out of this, Adrian growled. Why would I? Victor countered, his gaze sliding back to Alina. She is the perfect weapon. You've already let her close enough to wound you. The tension between the men was like a storm compressed into stone walls. Alina felt caught between two forces older and more dangerous than she understood. I don't want to be anyone's weapon, she snapped, her voice trembling but firm. Victor's smile lingered. Then learn the truth. Ask him what he stole. Ask him who paid the price. Alina turned to Adrian, searching his face. Tell me. Adrian's jaw tightened. Not here, not like this. Victor laughed, a low sound echoing up the tower. He won't tell you because the truth would ruin whatever spark is flickering between you. He's a thief of more than paper, Alina. He stole lives. That's enough, Adrian said, stepping forward. Victor mirrored him, their movements like a duel long rehearsed. Alina backed away, clutching the letter in her hand as though it could anchor her. Is it true? She whispered, her voice cracking. Adrian stopped, torn. For the first time, he looked at her not with control but with raw, unguarded pain. I did what I had to stop him, to stop what he was building. Victor's eyes glinted with cruel triumph. And in doing so you condemned 3 others. Tell her their names, Adrian, or shall I? Silence roared in Alina's ears. She wanted to scream at both of them to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Adrian's gaze held hers. If I could change it, I would, but I can't. I chose the lesser evil. The admission sliced through her, not the words themselves, but the honesty in them. Victor stepped closer, his presence suffocating again. So Alina, who will you trust? The man who lies by omission, or the man who offers you truth without disguise? Truth, Adrian spat. You twist it until it's poison. And yet she listens, Victor said smoothly. He extended a hand toward Alina. Come, walk away from his shadows. With me, you'll finally see. Alina stared at the offered hand. Her mind screamed to refuse, but some dangerous curiosity tugged at her, whispering that perhaps Victor really did hold the missing pieces. Adrian's voice broke through, softer now, urgent. Alina, look at me. He doesn't want to give you truth. He wants to own you the way he tried to own everyone. Don't let him. Her heart pounded. Between them she felt the weight of choice, not just between 2 men but between 2 worlds, one built on secrets, the other on shadows. She stepped back, shaking her head. I won't choose either of you tonight. Victor's eyes narrowed. Brave but foolish. He leaned close, whispering words that chilled her blood. He won't be able to protect you, not when I decide it's time. Then, like smoke, he slipped into the darkness of the tower's passage, leaving the scent of damp stone and danger behind. Alina pressed her back against the cold wall, shaking. Adrian moved toward her, his expression torn between rage and relief. Are you all right? He asked, his voice gentler now. She laughed shakily, the sound brittle. Do I look all right? Adrian hesitated, then reached for her hand. She flinched, but didn't pull away when his fingers brushed hers. His touch was warm, steady, achingly human after Victor's cold presence. I should leave, she whispered. You should stay, he countered. Not here, but with me. If you walk out alone, he'll follow. Her heart warred with itself. Every instinct told her to run, to escape both of them, yet some deeper gravity pulled her closer to Adrian. She lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes. For a moment, the world narrowed to the space between them, the brush of his thumb against her hand, the silent plea in his expression. Why me? She whispered again. Adrian's answer was almost a confession. Because you remind me what it means to be more than a weapon. The words burned through her, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. She didn't kiss him, not yet. But in the silence that followed, the possibility hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. Later, when Adrian escorted her back to her apartment, neither spoke of Victor. But as Alina closed the door behind her, one truth echoed in her mind. She was no longer an observer in their war. She was its center, and both men, one wrapped in shadows, the other in secrets, would fight to claim her trust. Part V, the last letter. The days after the tower felt unreal, like walking through mist. Alina went to work, answered colleagues mechanically, but her mind replayed the confrontation again and again. Victor's cold smile, Adrian's anguished honesty, the impossible choice hanging over her. Every sound outside her apartment made her tense, every shadow stretched too long. She knew Victor hadn't gone, men like him didn't disappear, they waited. On the 3rd night, as rain lashed against her window, she found another envelope on her doorstep. No knock, no sound of retreating footsteps. Just the letter sealed in black wax. Her stomach twisted as she broke it open. The archive, midnight tomorrow, come alone. If you want this to end, bring Adrian's trust with you. The words made her skin crawl, bring his trust. What did that even mean? Alina folded the letter, pressing it hard into her palm. She couldn't face this alone. When Adrian arrived, as if he had known she would call, she showed him the letter without a word. His expression hardened, but his eyes softened when they met hers. I should have ended this years ago, he said. Instead, I left the door open for him to use you. You said you wanted to protect me, she replied, her voice sharp with fear. Then do it now, tell me everything. What did you steal, Adrian? What's in these archives that has Victor circling me like a hawk? For a long time he said nothing, his jaw working as though the truth itself fought against release. At last he sat, his hands folded tightly. I stole records, he admitted. Ledgers of names, codes, payments. Proof that Victor's circle wasn't just trading secrets for power. They were trading people. Selling information that put lives into enemy hands. 3 agents disappeared because of it. 3 I couldn't save. Alina's chest ached. And he blames you. He knows I kept the ledgers. Without them, he can pretend his hands are clean. With them, he burns. Adrian's gaze held hers, steady and unflinching. That's why he wants you. If he can make you doubt me, I'll break and he'll take what's hidden. Alina looked down at the folded letter, her fingers trembling. Then we end it together. The archives lay beneath the oldest government building in the city, forgotten rooms smelling of mold and dust. At midnight, the heavy iron doors groaned open under Adrian's key. Alina followed him into the dim corridors, the echo of their footsteps loud in the silence. At the heart of the maze stood a chamber with shelves lined in cracked leather volumes. Adrian stopped before one, his hand brushing the spine with reverence and regret. This is it, he said. The proof, the reason he'll never stop. A voice slipped from the shadows. Then thank you for bringing me home. Victor emerged from the darkness, his coat dripping from the rain. 2 men followed him, their faces hidden in hoods. Alina's breath caught. They were trapped. Adrian moved in front of her instinctively, his body a shield. You won't touch her. Victor's laugh was low, amused. Still pretending you can protect what you love. You failed before, you'll fail again. His gaze slid to Alina. Did he tell you whose names were in those books? Did he confess that his choice condemned 3 innocents? Alina's voice shook but held steady. He told me enough, more than you would. Victor's smile faltered just for a moment. So you've already chosen. Not chosen, Adrian said grimly. She's seen the truth. The tension snapped like a bowstring. One of Victor's men lunged forward. Adrian moved with startling speed, knocking him aside. The chamber erupted in chaos, shelves shaking, dust spilling, the crash of bodies against stone. Alina darted back, clutching the ledger Adrian had pointed out. Pages fluttered as she hugged it to her chest. Victor saw, his eyes blazing. Give it to me, he roared, striding toward her. No, she cried, backing against the shelves. Adrian shoved the second attacker away and turned, intercepting Victor before he could reach her. The 2 men collided like old rivals bound by hate, their struggle raw and merciless. Run, Alina, Adrian shouted between blows, but she didn't run, she couldn't. Instead, with trembling hands, she tore a page from the ledger and held it high. If you want this, you'll have to kill me.